All right, if you or a loved one is a convicted felon, or you just believe in the Second Amendment as written shall not be infringed, this video is for you because there's a Supreme Court case going on right now you want to know about. This way you can keep up on everything that's going on. And this is the Hemani case. Hemani? I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly, but it doesn't really matter. Absolutely not. So let's move on. What's being tested out here is 922G. This case comes out of the Fifth Circuit. Basically, the Fifth Circuit was like, hey, after the Bruen standard applies, yes, he had drugs, but it doesn't matter. There was no prohibiting going on at the time of the founding of the Second Amendment about cases with drugs. So, the government requested that the Supreme Court take up cert on this, which means they want the case to be heard. So what's going on? Well, before we get into that, I want to remind you to shop at onlytechfans.shopify.com, where you can get cool survival gear, MREs, tourniquets, even some badass branded merchandise. Bam! Like this beanie right here. That's how I pay my bills, because I'm permanently demonetized from YouTube. Thank you for everyone that shops there, and thank you for thinking about going to shop there. Let's get on with the video. So, that happened. Supreme Court requested cert. What's going on and why does this matter? Why does a drug case matter to you or anybody that believes in the Second Amendment if you're not addicted to illegal narcotics? Well, it's going into, so there's a couple of different, basically what's happening right now is the 922G laws are coming up. These are a problem. They prohibit an entire class of people as being prohibited people, and they just use broad strokes. There's no like dissection, like here's the difference between this guy or that guy. Just across the board, these people are prohibited. And what's going on is they're going up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's being forced to be like, all right, so where are the boundaries? Is it just across the board? Because before Bruen it was yes. The government has full discretion to make anybody they want prohibited. But the problem is, the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. So is prohibiting person an infringement? That is the real question here. After the Bruen decision, because they used to have a two-part balancing test, you had historical text and tradition, what's actually constitutional, and then you had public safety. Well, the Supreme Court's like, no, a two-step balancing test is one step too far. The only thing that matters is what did the founders intend? What did they want? What was going on when the Second Amendment was founded? That's what we need to look at, because if you start looking at, just public safety, who's really a dangerous person? You know what? It could be anybody that likes a certain post, depending on who's in charge. We don't know. For a while there, it was looking like people that disagreed with what was going on with COVID were considered dangerous people. They were getting blacklisted off the internet. They were getting fired from jobs. There was a bunch of stuff that was going on that was really, really bad. And if we don't put a break on what is dangerous, basically removing that away from there, the public balancing test, it could include you. And you could have done nothing wrong your entire life. So let's get into it a little bit more. So what's going on right now? The next one, these cases are setting up to test 922G1. And this is what matters to you if you're a prohibited person for a felony. And that is felon in possession with a firearm. Just if you become a felon or you've been charged with a misdemeanor that carries longer than 1 year, you don't have to get it longer than a year. The maximum charge on that misdemeanor is longer than 1 year. You are now a prohibited person. So the first attempt was 922G8. That was the Hemani case. What we were testing there is, can somebody become a convicted person without ever having a conviction? Like, can they be restricted? Can you take away their firearms rights? And they've never, ever had any sort of conviction. Now, I don't know about never having any conviction, because dude was a shitbag and there was a lot of stuff going on in court. But basically, the Supreme Court ruled that, yes, even if you haven't been convicted of a crime, you can be temporarily disarmed if it's proven you are a dangerous person. Right now, what's going on is the 922G3 with the Hemani. Again, it doesn't really matter. And what they're testing is, if you've been known to be addicted to drugs, can you be a prohibited person? Now, the problem is we're probably going to lose that one. However, why we're going to lose it is kind of a stupid reason. What they call it is bad facts. Essentially, in the Rahimi case, in the Hemani case, dudes were shitbags. So apparently this dude, I haven't looked at the record myself, but it said that he's a terrorist and he's a known drug dealer. That's a little bit hard for the Supreme Court to swallow, so we're not going to get a total victory, but look at the Rahimi case. In that case, that's when we got Rahimi was temporarily. That's a big deal because that signals number 3. You know what? I'm jumping ahead. But Rahimi brought in temporarily. So, what we're looking for with all these tests, with these 922G laws, is can the government permanently disarm someone? Is that okay? Number 2, who is a dangerous person? What is the test to determine who's a dangerous person? Can these bans be considered constitutional if they're lifelong? Now, going back to what I was saying about the Rahimi thing, because they use the word temporarily, they're signaling that number 3 isn't constitutional for a lifelong ban. The Supreme Court doesn't think so. We'll have to see exactly what shakes out, but they specifically use the word temporarily, when they could have just affirmed that, yes, 922G8 is constitutional. They didn't. They used the word temporarily. So you can't give somebody a lifelong ban for having a restraining order, but you can temporarily disarm people that are known to be dangerous. So that's pretty cool right here because, yeah, it's looking like the lifelong ban may not be upheld. We don't have anybody to test 922G1 yet that I know of, but I'm sure there's a case working its way up through trial, on its way to the Supreme Court. We'll have to see what happens. So when are we going to get the answer for 922G3? And that will be probably like June 2026. We'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on. What is the end goal here? What are we trying to get? We are trying to get prohibited people to be on a case-by-case basis, not just disarming an entire class of people, because a lot of the reasons why people get disarmed are pretty freaking stupid. So what are some of the stupid reasons somebody could be a prohibited person for? And we're going to go through a list just so you understand like how sweeping this is and how way over the top prohibited people are. You could be a prohibited person for selling pirated CDs, movies, or software, writing bad checks over a certain amount, tax or other fraud like paper crimes, nonviolent drug offenses, marijuana use, even where it's legal in some states. Like you could be in Colorado, right? It's legal, marijuana's legal there, but the feds could swoop in, they could catch you on a charge because you have marijuana, even though it's legal in that state. Bam, you're still a prohibited person. Certain business or licensing violations, insider trading, financial crimes. Oh man, it just goes on and on and on. Misdemeanor domestic arguments. Say you threw something or some sort of force was exercised. Yeah, misdemeanor domestic. Boom, you're a prohibited person for life. Maybe you just pushed her to get out of the room because she was just in your face and you couldn't deal with it anymore. She was blocking the doorway and you slid her to the side while she said you pushed her. Prohibited for life. That's pretty wild. And getting a misdemeanor that has longer than 1 year attached to it. You don't have to be charged for a year, just longer than 1 year, you could be a prohibited person. Drug use status, dishonorable discharge from the military. It goes on and on and on and on. And the thing is, a lot of people don't become prohibited a lot of people don't become prohibited persons by becoming career criminals. You know what they become a prohibited person for? They were between the ages of like 17 and 20, and they got hemmed up on something stupid. There was a stupid kid move, and the prosecutor's like, here, sign this plea deal. We're not going to take you to jail. You're going to have a fine. You're going to have to pay restitution for breaking into that liquor store or breaking into that abandoned cabin that actually wasn't abandoned, but you didn't know that, and you stole beer out of there, or 22 shells, or something happened when you were a kid, and you signed this plea deal thinking that, oh, this is great, I'm just getting a little slap on the wrist. It was a stupid thing. You know what? I learned my lesson. I'm going to take this. You sign that piece of paper not knowing that you've just signed your life away. You are now a prohibited person. I know several stories that are like that. So that's a big deal. And then today they're like 40 years old and like, well, when I was 17, I accidentally kicked a dog and I got charged with animal abuse. because my neighbor charged me and the prosecutor had me sign this. It became domestic violence. Because it was domestic violence, now I'm a prohibited person for life. If I would have known that was what was going to happen, I would have taken it to trial. I would have rolled the dice. Who cares? Let's run this to trial. And I would have went in front of a jury and been like, look, if you guys convict me, you're not allowed to talk about the punishment. But essentially, they'd at least try to fight it or do something or try to negotiate a different plea deal. But they didn't know. They didn't know that, yes, this is just a misdemeanor, but because it carries over 365 days for a maximum sentence, they are now prohibited for life. So that's pretty wild. So this does need to be fixed. We want it so the judge has to order that you're a prohibited person. Go by a case-by-case basis. Because, yeah, some people, you know what? You're not going to hear much arguing. They should be prohibited. Now, I'm an extremist. I believe if you've paid your debt to society, you're no longer incarcerated, you're no longer on paper, you are a free individual, not answering to the state or the government anymore, there's no reason you can't have a firearm. Because there's so many firearms in America, you could throw a rock in the air and just pick up the firearm it lands next to. There's cars. You can make... We're not going to talk about other dangerous things you can do that don't even involve guns that have way more of a lethality than firearms. And I can do all that, but I can't legally possess a firearm? Then this is America. Like, why couldn't I? But like I said, I'm an extremist on that point. A lot of people think that, yes, there are certain classes of people that should be prohibited. I believe, you know what? If you should be prohibited, why don't they just give you longer paper? So that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is we want it a case-by-case basis. The judge has the order, okay, this person is a dangerous person, and this is why they are prohibited. This way, if it's something like, for me, I'm a prohibited person for life right now. I mean, we'll see what happens with my appeal, because I made a distasteful YouTube video. So a judge would have to order, yes, Matt Hoover, he made a distasteful YouTube video and ultimately got hemmed up on a conspiracy charge for illegally transferring a firearm he never even touched, sold, or collected any money for. But because he did the advertisement, that's a conspiracy and that makes him a dangerous person for life. Well, I could take that and I could run it through the appellate court because the judge ruled me to be a prohibited person, and the appellate court would have to rule that, is there a line here? Should he be prohibited for not even having any victims, not doing anything dangerous, and doing something he believed was lawful at the time? If the judge has to do it by a case-by-case basis, now they'll start to set up guardrails. Like, okay, you can't make this person a prohibited person because he pirated a VHS tape back in 1983. That's pretty ridiculous. But because it's just whole swaths of people right now, is if you're a felon or a misdemeanor longer than a year or a bunch of other stupid crimes, you're a prohibited person. But we want to wind that back. We're looking for guardrails. So, would that happen? That's what we're hoping for. We are waiting for the case for 922G1 to come up, but we may get some information out of this Hemani case, because usually they don't just say affirmed or not affirmed. They usually put guardrails in place. Like, okay, this is okay because of XYZ, or XYZ is okay, but you know what? 1, 2, 3 isn't. Like in the Hemani case, that was a loss, but they used the word temporarily. That's so powerful, the word temporarily. It's already saying they don't believe a lifelong conviction ban is constitutional. So we'll have to see how that plays out. So keep your eye on this case. Around June 2026, we're going to have insight on what's going to happen with the 922G1, because they're going to say something. They're going to say something in there that's going to give us an idea how they feel about the 922G laws. Again, you never get just a first round haymaker. Sometimes it happens, but usually it's a bunch of little cases that just chip at the core issue. And the core issue is a lifelong prohibition on entire classes of people constitutional? So we'll have to wait and see how that all goes. Now, if you'd like to help support the channel and you don't want to shop at only tactical fans at Shopify.com, you don't have to. There is another way. You go down to those affiliate links, click on that Amazon affiliate link. Just by clicking on that link, even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway. And I'll kick back for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.